The UK's economy has gone through nothing short of a revolution. I mean, how does a country built on coal mines and giant steel mills transform into a global hub for software and finance? Well, in this explainer, we're going to map that incredible journey from the grit of the industrial age right into the heart of the digital one.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the absolute basics, the 4 economic building blocks. Then, we'll take a look at Britain's mighty industrial engine when it was at its peak. After that, we'll watch its decline and then see the rise of the service economy. And finally, how globalization just completely redrew the map for Britain.
All right, first things first, we need to get the basics down. Every single modern economy is made up of 4 different sectors. And once you get these, honestly, the rest of the story just clicks into place.
Okay, so everything starts with the primary sector. This is like the absolute foundation of it all. Literally taking stuff right out of the earth or the sea. We're talking about farming, fishing, mining, the very raw beginnings of the whole economic chain.
Next up, you've got the secondary sector. This is where we take all that raw stuff and actually make things with it. This is the world of factories, of manufacturing, turning iron ore into steel, using that steel to build a car. You get the idea. Think of it as the making things part of the economy.
And then there's the tertiary sector, which, let's be real, is where most of us spend our working lives today. This is the service economy. So instead of making a physical product, you're providing a service. Teachers, doctors, people working in shops, they're all a huge and vital part of this sector.
And last but not least, we have the quaternary sector. This is the real cutting-edge stuff, the knowledge economy. It runs on ideas, on research, and on pure innovation. Think software developers, biotech researchers. This is the powerhouse that's really driving growth in the modern world.
Okay, so now that we have those 4 building blocks, let's jump in a time machine. What did the engine room of Britain's economy actually look like back in the day?
For ages, for a really, really long time, Britain's entire identity was forged in its fields, its mines, and its factories. The huge majority of people were either digging stuff out of the ground or turning it into something else. That was the engine that powered the whole country.
And there was a real logic to where all this happened. These industrial heartlands, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. No, they were built right on top of their own fuel source. Places like the Midlands, South Wales, and the north of England became manufacturing giants for one simple reason. They were sitting on tons of coal and iron ore.
But then, that powerful engine started to sputter. And this brings us to a huge turning point in the UK's story, a time of massive and often really difficult change. We're talking about deindustrialization.
Deindustrialization. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's the huge decline of that manufacturing and heavy industry sector. All those factories, the shipyards, the coal mines, the very symbols of British power, they started to shrink, and many closed down for good.
So why? What happened? Well, it was basically a perfect storm of 3 big things. First, the easy-to-reach raw materials, like coal, were just running out. Second, paying workers in the UK was becoming more expensive. And third, you had this explosion of competition from other countries that could make things a lot cheaper.
But as those old industries faded away, something new rose from the ashes. A new economy emerged and created the modern British workforce that we see today. One that's all about the service sector.
And when you look at the numbers, the scale of this change is just wow, it's staggering. If you look back, most people worked in those primary and secondary sectors, making things. But today, it's completely flipped on its head. The tertiary and quaternary sectors are now where almost everyone works. It's a complete 180.
To put it simply, the UK went from being a nation of makers to a nation of service providers. The majority of people today have jobs in areas like retail, healthcare, finance, and education.
So what was behind this massive shift? Well, it comes down to a really basic economic idea. As a country gets richer, its people change how they spend their money. We tend to spend less on basic things and more on services and experiences. Healthcare, holidays, entertainment. The UK economy just evolved to keep up with that demand. And right alongside that booming service sector, the knowledge economy we talked about earlier has become absolutely vital. This isn't just a niche part of the economy anymore. Innovation in things like IT and biotech is now one of the main engines for the country's future growth.
But here's the thing. This huge change didn't just happen in a bubble. There was this massive global force pushing everything along, accelerating the change, and completely redrawing the UK's economic map.
And that force was globalization.
So, globalization. What is it really? At its heart, it's just the world becoming more and more connected. It's about how easy it's become for goods, for money, for people, and for ideas to move across borders. It's basically made the world feel like a much smaller place.
And this was all kicked into high gear by two massive leaps in technology. First, you had huge changes in transport, like giant container ships and affordable air travel that made moving physical stuff around the world cheaper and faster than ever. And second, of course, was the internet, which lets us send ideas and information anywhere in the world in an instant.
And this new globalized world completely changed the rules of the game for where a business would set up. See, the old industries were stuck. They had to be near the coal. But these new knowledge industries, they're what we call footloose. They're not tied to any physical resource, so they can go anywhere. And where do they go? They follow the talent, the top universities, and the best digital connections.
So, what this has done is create a totally new economic map for the UK. That knowledge economy has really clustered together, mostly in the south of England. You see these amazing tech hubs that have grown up around places like Cambridge, Oxford, and Reading. And a big reason for their success is being so close to the global financial powerhouse of London.
So, there you have it, the UK's incredible journey from an economy of coal and steel to one of code and finance. It really is a remarkable story of change and adaptation. Which, of course, leaves us with the big question, what comes next? What will the UK's next great economic evolution be?